cravings just keep coming? Do they just seem to never stop? You can't walk past that little section of the grocery store to just check out what you want. You got to get the Reese peanut butter cups. You want to get the Skittles. You got to grab the soda from the ice box on the way out. You went to Home Depot to get lumber. You wind up walking out with 2 packages of Reese peanut butter cups. I mean, come on. There is so much food around us and so much sugar that our bodies crave. Hey guys, I'm Coach Ken here at Healthy Together and Feeling Great. And today I have on again Meghann Hempel to talk about food addiction and sugar addiction as we are in the second day of our sugar detox that we're doing for a 2-week plan. So this might be helpful for you. If you'd like to join us in that, we have a Facebook group. I'll put that into the comment below, into the description, but it's also on our webpage. We'd love to have you come be a part of that at any time, even whether it's when we're doing it or not. The reality is so many of us are impacted by the addictions that we have to foods and especially to sugar, which is our lives. And so as a here at Healthy Together and Feeling Great, I hope to help you. Without further wasting your time or mine, let's jump into this incredible story and the guidance that Meghann has to offer today.
For having me on. Hello, everyone. My name is Meghann Hempel. I am the owner of Brain, Body, and Beyond. I am a food addiction and weight loss specialist. Before we get into the food addiction discussion and all the tools and the strategies on how to navigate through that, I feel like it's very important health and kind of why I do what I do. So my health journey really stems back all the way from age 9. I was a very obsessive compulsive child. I had chronic anxiety and depression, and my parents thought they were doing the best thing for me by putting me into therapy. And we went through so many different therapies and I just was not getting better. So they put me on medication at a very young age because they didn't know any better. So through my childhood, I grew up kind of like a zombie. The medications made me feel very kind of numb. I grew up in a fog. I didn't have any confidence. I never felt smart enough. I never felt good enough. You know, school was always very difficult for me. And so I grew up just very, insecure. And honestly, food was kind of a coping mechanism for me. And I had this undying appetite, and no amount of food was never enough. So throughout, school, I was kind of bullied. I was friends with everybody, but there was a lot of fat girl jokes. And I just, I found the gym at 16, and that was kind of my outlet. And I thought, you know what, well, if I can't be smart enough, if I can't, offer anything to the world, maybe I can at least, be pretty. So really got into fitness, really started liking the results that I was seeing. And it was just, I became addicted to the gym, and I started, binging and purging and having these really disordered behaviors around food, but I didn't really know any better. I thought it was normal, right? And then fast forward to age 19, I got pregnant at a really young age. I was a baby, basically having a baby. And that was probably that 1 year of being pregnant. I did not have disorder. I was chronic overeating, but I wasn't binging and purging. But having to take care of a baby and trying to survive, and my food addiction was out of control. My anxiety and depression was out of control. But I had to survive, and in order to survive, I was nannying. Fast forward to age 24, I was kind of having a quarter life crisis. I was on these cocktail of medications. My food addiction is out of control. And I was just thinking to myself, well, what if these medications are actually, the problem? What if they're actually making, all of my issues worse? And so I thought, maybe I should get off of these medications. And so I found this book. It was called Anatomy of an Epidemic. And this book basically was all about what psych meds can do to you long term and what they can do to you as a child, and just the development of the brain. And my whole life started to make sense, and I was heartbroken and sad, and I decided to cold turkey off of these medications. Now, whoever is listening into this call, never, ever, ever cold turkey off of psych meds. It is terrible. I went through 5 years of psychiatric drug withdrawal. It was a nightmare. But during this time, and how painful it was, I knew that I had to rise. And I felt like Big Pharma had taken so much life from me, and I needed to make a mean comeback. And I was going to prove something to the world. And so getting off of these psych meds, I accomplished more than I ever had in my entire life. I pursued fitness. I pursued firefighting. I advanced emergency medical technician, all of these things. During this time, I still had to be a mother. I was going to school, and food, once again, was my coping mechanism. So fast forward, I finally am getting into a good place mentally, like coming kind of out of the outs of psych med withdrawal. And I'm about to start this new career in the fire service. I'm excited. I'm feeling good. Life is about to, start. And I did get help for my food addiction recovery finally, because I knew that if I didn't get help. So when I say food addiction, I had been in the health space too for some time, and I was preaching, live this balanced lifestyle, everything in moderation. But behind closed doors, I was binging and purging, and I was a total fraud. And I knew that if I didn't get help, it was only a matter of time until insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes. Luckily for me, I was kind of a fitness addict, so I was always trying to run off my bad diet, but I knew it was only a matter of time until it caught up to me. So got coaching. It changed and saved my life for forever. I used to say to myself, if I ever, find a way to overcome this food addiction and bulimia, I'm going to make it my life's mission to give back and, help others do the same, right? But I also had to pay the bills. So I got into the fire service. My food addiction is under control at this point. And 2 months into my career, I fell backwards out of the ambulance on an EMS call, landed on my head, went out, and thought I was okay, and I wasn't. And I had a traumatic brain injury. This traumatic brain injury took my entire career in the fire service. I'm symptoms of post-concussion, but I'm alive and surviving. And that accident was honestly the biggest blessing. It was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think there's always a trade-off in life. But that accident pushed me into my true purpose, which is what I do now. And that is coaching people literally around the world with food addiction. I launched my business out of my childhood bedroom when I was in recovery at my parents' house. So now I coach people around the world doing what I love. Now, with that being said, I just want you to know that if you struggle with food and sugar addiction, or you're living in these sick cycles, there is so much hope. Now, you may be like, well, do I even struggle with food addiction? How do I struggle with food addiction? We're going to go over a few things. So I'm going to ask you a list of questions, okay? There's 15 questions, and I'm going to actually have a link in the show, in the comments at the end of this conversation. So if you want to review them, you're more than welcome to. But I'm going to ask you these questions. Yes to maybe 5 or 6 of these questions. You might want to consider getting some more support if you've been living in these sick cycles for a long time and haven't been able to escape them on your own. So I'm going to ask you these questions. All right. So number 2, you often eat more than you intended or find it difficult to stop eating once you start? 2, have you tried to hack on certain foods or eating habits, but find do so? Do you frequent your meals around specific foods or feel preoccupied with eating? Have you noticed that your eating habits interfere with your daily responsibilities, work, or social life? Do you eat in secret or feel ashamed about your eating habits? Have you experienced physical or emotional discomfort as a result of your eating habits, such as weight gain, digestive issues, or feelings of guilt? Do you continue to eat even when you feel full? Do you ever eat until you feel sick? Do you use food as a way to cope with stress, anxiety, or other emotional challenges? Have you ever noticed a pattern of eating larger quantities of food than you despite efforts to control sizes? Do you find yourself repeatedly to change your eating habits but struggling to follow through? Have you tried living that balanced lifestyle that so many people talk about but don't feel as though balance exists? Have you lived in the yo-yo diet culture for what seems to be forever? Do you do really good with your diet for some time, and the second you consume something off plan, all hell breaks loose? So I always like to ask, do you think you are a moderator or an abstainer? So a moderator is somebody who can have the cookie, they can have the piece of pizza, they can have one, they're done, they're good, they get on with their day. Now, an abstainer is probably somebody who one cookie turns into 10, and before you know it, they're eating the cereal, they're eating everything that's in the pantry, okay? Just like one is just, it's never enough, okay? And so addiction is like dealing with two different people, okay? And we need to be able to identify who is speaking, okay? And this is one of my favorite exercises. I give this to all of my clients. What you need to understand is you are so in control. You are in control of your life more than you even know. And so we need to start rewriting our story, okay? We get so stuck in our old narratives. We need to rewrite that. You are, I'm very big with what you think and say about yourself is what you become. So if you were saying, oh, well, I always do this, and this is where I'm always going to be, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're going to stay there for forever. But what if you said, I don't do that anymore? I'm creating a new version of myself. I'm creating new healthy habits because I want to make myself better. I want to live a long life. I want to be around for my family. I want to be around for my grandchildren, and so on. So food addiction is a whole different ballgame because food is everywhere, right? And we can't escape it. We still need food to survive, right? And so it's learning what works for us and not against us. So I give this exercise to my clients, okay? So let's just say, I'm going to use myself as an example. There's Meghann. Meghann wants to thrive. She wants to win. She wants to live her greatest life. Then you have Ed, okay? Ed is that addictive brain. I call it Ed because ED stands for eating disorder. Food addiction is disordered eating, okay? So I like to put a name to it. There's Meghann and then there's Ed, okay? Ed creeps in when you're doing really, really great and is like, just have the cookie. Just have one. You've been doing so good. Well, Meghann needs to come back and needs to teach Ed how to feed the lies with the truth. Meghann knows that one cookie is never enough, and that one cookie is going to turn into 10 or 20 or 30. Okay. So being able to identify your voice versus the voice of sabotage, whatever you want to call it, is the first strategy that I love to give my clients. Okay. So identifying who's speaking. Now, what you need to realize with food addiction comes the 5 stages of grieving, which I'm sure you've heard before, okay? The 5 stages of grieving are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And the first stage to getting better is acceptance. Food addiction is no different than any other addiction. Now, I know this sounds a little hardcore, but an alcoholic doesn't just say, I'm going to have one beer. A heroin addict doesn't say, oh, I'm just going to shoot up tonight and just, that's it and I'm done. Just a little bit. No, the same thing happens, is with a food addict, right? Like for me personally, I have been sugar-free for 6 years. I have not touched sugar for 6 years, and I don't touch sugar because I know I don't have control over it. I don't. I'll have one and all hell breaks loose. And I know that about myself. So I am an abstainer. I abstain from certain foods. Now, some people may be like, oh my gosh, that is total restriction. And we need to shift the narrative and the mindset there a little bit, because it's restrictive? Being a slave to food, being sick, having diabetes, having insulin resistance, having fatty liver, having all of these metabolic illnesses, right? Because if you are a true food addict, you know very well your eating is out of control. And if you do not get it together, it's only a matter of time until that catches up to you. So a couple of exercises that I want to give to you that you can start implementing tonight is, 1, determine who is speaking. Is it you that's talking, or is it your addictive brain talking? And then 2, I want you to write a list of your non-negotiables and your drug foods. Your drug foods need to become non-negotiables. So when that voice creeps in, it's like, oh, you've had a rough week. You need to be able to say, no, I don't eat those things anymore because they don't serve me, okay? So like a drug food for me, cookies, cakes, ice cream, those are my drug foods. Now, if you are a moderator and you can have those every now and then without not going into the deep end, that is amazing. But for some of us, moderation doesn't work. So if you are somebody who struggles with food addiction, write down that list of drug foods. Now, I want you to write a list. Number 3 is I want you to write a list of your danger zones. So a danger zone is, when are you most vulnerable? Okay, so that could be holidays, vacations, celebrations, a long day of work, anything kind of emotional or stressful. Those could be a danger zone, okay? Now, when you know your danger zones, you can learn how to pre-plan and navigate. And so the 4th thing that I want you to write down is creating an emotional management toolbox. Now, I know that sounds a little silly, but it works wonders, because you need a new coping mechanism, because you're abusing food right now. It's your outlet and it's your best friend, right? So what are some other ways that you can cope and navigate these scenarios without going off into the deep end? So an emotional management toolbox, it could look different for everybody. So it could be putting on a podcast, going for a walk, friend, going to the gym, whatever it may be, a craft, anything to distract your mind, to get out of that place where things that don't serve you any longer. Okay, and then low carb diet. Okay, I think a low carb diet, I'm not going to get too far into it, but a low carb diet, I think is extremely helpful for everybody. I think everybody should be on a low carb diet. Now, a low carb diet is typically 150 grams of carbohydrates or below. And I'm talking about whole food carbohydrates, staying away from processed foods. All of those foods that are in a box that you think are healthy, 9 times out of 10, they are garbage. So another tool is sticking with a low carb diet. Now, I think there is something to be said with regulating your blood sugar and insulin. If you are constantly eating a high carb diet, your blood sugar is like this all the time, okay? We want it nice and like steady, okay? And you can do that with a low carb diet. With a low carb diet, when we're, regulating our blood sugar and insulin, there's a lot less food noise and a lot less cravings, okay? So using a low carb diet as a tool, and then also using your words wisely. I know that sounds silly, but your words are so powerful. If you stay in a mindset of pity and victim and, I'm never going to get to where I want to go, you won't. you've got to be your biggest hype girl, your biggest hype man. Like you gotta just get after and say, I can do this, and immerse yourself in personal development and positivity. It is going to change your life. And the last tool I'm going to give you is the Unicity Feel Great system. I love this system. And honestly, I am new to this system. I was really drawn to this system. I also have an autoimmune issue. And when I found out that this could naturally upregulate GLP-1, I was very excited. I the GLP-1 injections are just not an option to me. I do have clients on them. I have friends on them. But for me personally, I just don't want to go down that path. But I do know that GLP-1 has a bunch of anti-inflammatory effects. This system also helps naturally regulate glutathione, which is also an anti-inflammatory. And that's why I was really drawn to it. It's helped me so much with my energy and inflammation. But I'm also always looking for other tools for my clients who still struggle with cravings and food noise. I don't struggle with food noise and cravings anymore. I've been sugar-free for about 6 years now, but I still have clients that do, right? So I'm all about finding tools that work. I have quite a few of clients right now that are on the Feel Great system, and it's helping them fast a lot longer. They have less food noise. They're feeling fuller a lot quicker. So I think this is an amazing. I actually had a woman who's literally been on it a week paired with a low carb diet, and her doctor has already told her to cut her metformin in half. Like, beautiful things are happening. So I know that was fairly quick. I hope I was able to give you some tools and tricks. If you want to reach out to me, if you have any questions, please send me a message. Always.
Meghann, thank you as always. Just absolutely incredible. Meghann and I regularly message. I just appreciate her so very much. And those of y'all that are coming in, if you are dealing with the issues of food addiction, you're in a great place, and particularly with sugar addiction, as we address sugar detox and what's happening in our bodies right now. Learning to question, learning to ask questions is a huge part of our lives, right? And our health overall. Understanding the impact of processed foods and what we've been eating and what we have been led to eat by our current approach to food. We've been taught to eat 3 or 6. How many meals a day have you been taught to eat? Was it 3 or 6? Put that in the comment section below. However it is that you've been taught to eat, we have to address that. And part of that has led to this addiction, that mentally we have been conditioned to say we need to eat all the time. Well, that's led to an incredibly difficult and dangerous and deadly disordered eating set of habits. And it leads then oftentimes to the opposite, as Meghann has laid out so well from her own story and her own life. And so the Feel Great system and learning to eat correctly is a huge part of what we do. And I never thought that how I was taught to eat, how I taught my kids how to eat, was disordered eating. But we really have done that. 3 to 6 meals a day and healthy snacks has been incredibly disordered, because as human beings, we've never eaten that way. We've eaten when we're hungry. We've regulated that through the course of the day. But the idea of breaking fast breakfast was something that came up in the 50s and 60s with Post cereal and Kellogg's, and then was reinforced by science. And where do we find the insanity of that? It's in the money. It's always in the money, isn't it? When it doesn't make sense, as my wife, the beautiful Dr. G, says, when it doesn't make sense, it makes money. So the reality of this is we need to address what's been going on. I had to do that, and so do so many others. Now, she mentioned something called the Feel Great system. And I put this on here because Dr. G and I, as we work with people, as we work with clients, as we work with people on this journey, we use the Feel Great system. We find it to be one of the best ways to help people get into an ordered pattern of eating, into a healthy pattern of eating, to reinforce nutrition, because it is a science-based nutraceutical that is standardized. So that means that everything in the packets that we are in this are measured. You can sit there and see the measurements are there, so a doctor can look in the PDR.net, find out the benefits of this. It was for me and Dr. G. It changed our lives, and I believe it is one of the best things that we can do. So if you've got questions, let me know. Put that in the comment section. If you need to, reach out to us. I encourage you to make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you're interested in joining the Feel Great system and being a part of our coaching program. We'd love to have you. As I said at the beginning, we're starting a sugar detox, and that's why this video is here. That's why I bring Meghann on, and I'm so glad that you all stopped in today. If you do have any questions, it looks like I'm trying to follow along and make sure my computer's not pulling up the comments. So if you've got one and you need to leave that, maybe you have a question about what Meghann said, or you're looking at this going, I need to make some changes. This is something that's incredibly important for your health, for my health, for all of our health. And that's what I want. That's what we want at Healthy Together and Feeling Great. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you stay up to date, especially during this sugar detox. We're in day 2. We started yesterday. We went through our pantry. We've been doing that for a couple of days to find all of the things that are in the bags and boxes and barcodes with all of the hidden sugar. And usually this is a day, make sure you're drinking water, make sure that you're getting electrolytes, make sure you're aware of a little bit, maybe extra salt intake, and good salt, Redmond salt, Celtic salt, Himalayan salt, good salts with the sodium that is not the extra sodium. All right. We want good electrolytes in our bodies to help with any headaches as we deal with dehydration. We want to help with that today because your bodies are going to need that. Your body's going to need that in this time. Thank y'all so much for being here. You got questions, you let me know. All right. Go get the day, make it golden, go be excellent to one another, and go be excellent to yourself.